So today's focus is going to be the 1 km to Ai Tong because I've sold 5 homes, landed ones, 1 kilometer to Henry Park. Are you thinking that you need more space and that a landed home might suit your family after you've been living in condos for a while? And not to mention you want 1 kilometer to a good school. Well, I've got you here because this is part 1 of our 1 km to good school landed edition. I'm Sarah X Miracle, content creator, mom of 4, and also a realtor specializing in helping families upgrade from condos into landed homes. So you have young kids. They could be maybe anywhere from a few months old to 4 or 5 years old, and you know that your next move is going to be something long term. You're thinking 10, 15 years because it's got to last all the way to their primary school and even their younger siblings' primary school. And not only that, you want to be in a place where you don't have to move so many times, because moving with families is tough. Trust me, I'm a mom of 4, but you also want to be in an asset that you know is going to continue to grow and compound in net worth so that adds to you at the end of the day when you want to have something as a legacy asset you can play with around, you can cash out and retire, you have options if you hold on to a landed for at least 10 to 15 years, maybe even 20, depending on how old you are. So if that's your motivation and you like content like this, I hope you'll subscribe, hit the notification button, and please stay tuned for more content like that because I make videos like this every single week to benefit other families like yourself who love and want to know more about how they can progress and advance their real estate portfolio, optimize it in a family-centric way, and do it safely, securely, with the financial planning and timeline as well. So today's focus is going to be the 1 km to Ai Tong, and it's this very, very specific circle, and there are a few different areas around this Thomson area that if you don't already live in Thomson, let's say you live somewhere else, but you know you want to go back to Ai Tong, you want to be there, you might not be familiar. And the point is that we're starting with Ai Tong going strong and going to be explaining to you all the different enclaves and also give an assessment, like my honest mom assessment, on what might work for you depending on your lifestyle requirements and also what you prefer. Because Thomson is really unique. There is HDB, there are condos, there is park, there are malls, there is the new MRT Thomson East Coast Line. So we've got a lot to talk about today. Now we're going to do more schools. So if you have a school you want to see being done, please leave a comment below. Our next episode is going to be about Henry Park because I've sold 5 homes, landed ones, 1 kilometer to Henry Park. So I think I can say a lot about that too. But without further ado, let's talk about Ai Tong. And first we want to look at the one map. So if you go to one map, you look at the red areas. Now this red area here, which on the screen, you can see this is the 1 km radius to Ai Tong. And a big part of this 1 km radius is taken up by McRitchie and Windsor Park. So that means the landed areas that are nearby really are limited to just this part inside. Okay, so Ai Tong, the nearest enclave, literally like just a few minutes walk away, would actually be the Fulton Road and Fulton Avenue, this particular enclave. And that is actually squashed in adjacencies to Sin Ming Garden. And that's our HDB blocks over there. But it is also super convenient because the MRT, Bright Hill MRT, is just a short walk up to the MRT. So Fulton, however, if you really look at the plots that they have, are mostly going to be all terrace plots. There are no semi-Ds, they're in clusters of 4. Some of them are like longer rows of terraces. So you're talking about entry prices of around $4.5 million to potentially even 6-ish if you have a better built plot. Let's go onto Google Maps and have a look at this street. Now you have things such as a really nicely done, I believe this is an A&A, kind of like a corner terrace over here. But you can see that there's a higgledy-piggledy feel because all these terraces were built at different times. So what you're going to do is that you're going to have a lot of variation. So we go to this thing called URA space, and we want this thing called special and detailed control plans. We want landed housing area, and we are going to search for the area that we want. So let's say Fulton Avenue, it's going to just be here. And we are going to get to go and see that this is a 2-story envelope mixed landed. Now, so what does a 2-story envelope actually mean? So 2 stories means that you can build up to 12 meters high, and 3-story envelope means you can build up to 15.5 meters high. So in the number of stories zone, usually you're talking about a 2-story plus an attic for the so-called 2-story envelope zone. And for 3-story envelope zone, you're talking about being able to build up 3 stories plus an attic. So that's really, really a very big difference difference in terms of the build-up area you can achieve in a 3-story versus a 2-story zone. So Fulton, I would say, because of its proximity to schools, it is not going to be like a very high-rise area. It is going to be only 2-story envelope, and they're all terraces. And when we looked at it, I mean, this is the feel of Fulton. We're going through it just for you to get a vibe. There are many that are still 2-story terraces, so you would expect that the plots here, standard terrace widths about 6 meters wide. So for example, 74 Fulton Road, which is this particular unit over here, it is 1850 square feet in land, and so you can expect that typically we're going to have very similar plot sizes all around, about 1850. Of course, you will have the corner terraces. Sometimes these corner terraces are larger. For example, this is a corner over here. These two are corners. So the corners, which are probably 78 and 80, these are going to be larger. So you get a 2,800 zone over here. So if you have a corner terrace, it feels very much like a semi-detached because you also have the light on the side coming in. You know, it's not kind of like having that full depth. But do note that just because you have a corner terrace doesn't mean that the built-up inside is going to be more than a terrace, because essentially what they did was that they just gave you a bit more land at the side. But usually the developer would have built a structure that's the same and quite uniform throughout. So one thing I want to use to apply in terms of the QPE framework that I've also used, and I've in this other video explained using District 15 as an example, is that the quality of the development also depends on the neighborhood that you're in, because the neighborhood that you're in determines how wide are the roads. Is there a view? Can I see HDB behind me? The location and the amenities. So the quality of the house itself as well, the renovation, you can see that the Fulton side doesn't have a lot of very new builds. You're talking about anywhere from something built in the 60s to the 90s. There aren't that many new ones around. So this area is prime for rejuvenation. So this is very interesting. What you have is a stretch of very large terraces along this Fulton stretch. Now we're talking about terraces that are 3,200 square feet alone. So the frontage is 9 meters, the depth is 30 meters. So these are very, very good size in terms of the plots. So at Fulton, you'll be getting anywhere from something like that. And of course, 38, you can see, was a much newer build as well. So commanding that premium over here. So that was 6.65 this year at 2,000 PSF. And of course, the owners have obviously rebuilt it because you can see the ceiling heights are a lot higher. So this is definitely something worth looking at. Newer builds that the previous owner has done, because they probably did the new build in about 10 years ago, which is the last transacted 2015. And I would share with you in another video about, where the opportunities are now buying and landed. Is it definitely buying new builds or newer structures are going to last you a lot longer, even though you might be paying a premium for it upfront. So at Fulton, we have a few of these that are available. So we can try to look for something like that if you have a $6.5 million to $7 million budget, something that's more built. So Fulton is an interesting location, the nearest to Ai Tong. Now let's go back to the rest of these districts because I want to cover them very quick. Now there is a very interesting other enclave that's also walking distance to Ai Tong School, and that is at the Inglewood and Island Garden Walk. So now Inglewood, this is like a collection of landed houses around this Inglewood circle, but I would say that the Inglewood is not as nice and spaced out as Island Gardens Walk. So just going to look at the Inglewood now on Google Maps for you. You have these, all of them are done in this two-door style because it was all developed by the same developer. So for you to actually break off from this like design, it's going to be a little bit difficult. You kind of need to kind of stick into this. So even though this Inglewood is 3-story mixed landed, it's supposed to be 3 stories and built 3.5, you don't really see anyone building in 3.5. In a way, the houses are not actually optimized because of the previous roof restrictions. At some point, the government was like, all of the angles have to meet at this point. Now the restrictions are that the roof can be like that. So the angles don't have to meet. The angles can have a flat roof in the middle, right? And the angles at the end of the house. So now this is the problem with the Inglewood. So if you want something more modern, you're not going to find it at the Inglewood. That said, because the plots here are rather small, we're talking about 1,007, not that small, but smaller than your Fulton when you have even 3,000 square feet land for terrace. You have half the size of that. Okay, so can you imagine the Fulton terrace was the whole plot essentially because 1.7. So we're talking about very affordable quantums of 4,018 for number 45, the Inglewood. This is the one that actually sold for 4.018 at actually 2,332 PSF. So PSF is higher because the quantum is lower, but entry $4 million is the price, honestly, of quite a bunch of other condos. So if you're looking to move into landed, the Inglewood seems like a pretty good set because of the quantum and size combination. Now I want to share with you also about Island Gardens, because Island Gardens has a shortcut that actually allows you to walk by to the Ai Tong area. So you can actually cut through here. There's actually a path that's not shown on this map. Cut through here, and then there's a road over here, and then you're already at Ai Tong. So that's pretty amazing, Island Garden. And one thing nice about Island Gardens is that it's a very wide road. Now, I actually have a whole list of houses that were available on the market right now. And so if you're talking about when it came to Ai Tong and you're thinking about where to start looking for landed, I'll be super happy to share my list with you, share my insights about the different specific areas. So going back to the QPE framework, talking about price, PSF will be higher here because of the quantums are lower. And the quality as well is something to take note, because this two-door style is going to be very difficult for you to kind of like change. So the quality is kind of fixed, and honestly it's not very appealing to most people. So talking about exit strategy wise, I would say exit strategy for this may be a bit more challenging, and you maybe be a bit more stagnant because you're going to be compared to this particular enclave only because everyone looks the same. You look at that, so you can't really do that much difference. Whereas in Fulton, there is still a lot of different higgly-piggly. So it really is on the merit of the quality of your build, right? You won't be so restricted by the transactions in the area. So if people really like the quality of your build, if you add value to those terraces, you could really, for example, do a nice A&A on a smaller terrace. You know, we're talking like, for example, here, a land size of 1,007 or 1,850, that was the one. So we're talking about 1850 times this kind of pricing, 2,300 square feet. For a two-story terrace, you're looking at about 4.2, 4.3. And honestly, this is not easy to find because no one wants to charge only $4.2 million for land right now. So what we're saying is that you could get a Fulton plot for around 4.2, maybe 4.3, and then add on an AA for 500-700K. So you spend about 5. But eventually you could be exiting somewhere about 6.5 in roughly a 5 to 8 year kind of timeline. So that's what I could see for the exit for Fulton. But for Inglewood, there's not much value in terms of exit, right? There's not much I can add on in terms of value wise so that I get a nicer exit when I want to sell and make my money, maybe upgrade to an even bigger landed. So I personally would not choose Inglewood. If you want, I would actually like to introduce you to the Island Garden Walk instead. So Island Gardens Walk is a very nice, huge, big road. Okay, it's also 3-story envelope control mixed landed. But what you have here is that you do not have that two-door style. You actually have a different style of terraces over here that can be actually A and 8. So you see this guy, he's added on another level on top plus the attic, right, to really optimize the entire thing. So this is a total rebuild because you can see the ceiling height is much higher than the old one. And by the way, here's a corner terrace too. So you've got a really nice plot. Oh my gosh. But in general, like quite a lot of the neighbors have done a lot of nice amendments. Like, you know, they've changed the balconies, they've done things. They kind of put glass over here, but the road is very wide. You won't have issues having like visitor parking. And most of the plots also have long driveways, which means you can park 2 cars. So the terrace plots are 2001 kind of range, and we're talking about roughly 6.5 meter wide frontage. Also do note that these are split levels, so there is a 3-step split up for this particular set of terraces. But that isn't really so much of a problem because when you go in, the ceilings are quite high. We're talking about 3.3 meters when you step in. So the kitchen is and the dining at the back is still a pretty good ceiling height. So Island Gardens Walk, if you look at the very end of the road, this is where there is a little shortcut, this little path over here that cuts down and goes down. And then that's Ai Tong already just behind over here. So I don't feel that. So you have this cute little path that goes past Faber Green. And then this allows you to go down along here. By the way, it's really safe because I walked down it and there's actually like a metal guard to protect you so your kids can safely walk down this path and head towards Ai Tong. So that walkability to school wise, these would be 2 of the top closest. And I'm going to share with you a third possibility if you want to also be walking distance, means literally walk to Ai Tong, is actually the Windsor Park and Venus Road Enclave. Now, there aren't that many houses here, but occasionally one comes up for sale. However, most of them are single-story plots for rebuild. Let me show you. So this is the third one. So in terms of exit, going back to the Island Gardens Walk, I would say that unless you have money for a full rebuild, most of the owners will be expecting somewhere similar to the PSF for Inglewood. So they'd be expecting a low $5 million because it's a larger plot. So if you really wanted to rebuild that, you'll be looking at $5.1 million plus at least 1.5. So you're at least 6.6 down for a terrace at Island Gardens walk. Now going to Venus Road, this is the part here. Now there is a shortcut here to go up along the pedestrian pathway, and then you can cross the road to Sin Ming Avenue. Just do an easy walk up here and you'll already be at Ai Tong School. So it's really not that far away because of this. So if you manage to get something around this area or even slightly inner, like this part here on Windsor, what I like about this side of Upper Thomson is that you are walking distance as well to Thomson Plaza. So look at this triangulation over here. You have Ai Tong School, which is here. You have Venus Road and you have Thomson Plaza. So you are basically in between Thomson Plaza, of which the MRT is just at Thomson Plaza. So you are just walking distance to both school and amenities. And a bonus is that you're also walking distance to the park behind, like it's just behind. So you have a lot of greenery surrounding you. And so out of like these three that we've talked about so far, I really would love Venus. But caveat is that the plots there are larger terrace plots as well. So we're talking about similar plot sizes to Island Garden, but with wider widths. So we're talking about on average a 7.5 meter frontage compared to Island Garden, which is a 6.5 meter frontage. So you get slightly longer plots and narrower for Island Garden, but for Venus, the plots are actually wider frontage, so they feel a lot more presence. And so quite a lot of them have rebuilt in this particular stretch of Venus Road, and you can see that from the Google map. Actually, you can see like who has rebuilt and who has not rebuilt. So look at this. So this is the path that leads upwards, that goes towards that main Upper Thomson Road, and you can cross the Sin Ming over there. And these guys have rebuilt so nicely. So see, this whole part is up for rejuvenation. Some have rebuilt, some are still single story. So most of the ones who are selling are the single story owners, and you will have to put in at least 1.5, maybe even $1.8 million if you want to be able to build. Now do note that Windsor and Venus, however, is a 2-story envelope mixed landed because we also are nearby to the bungalows and the GCPA of Windsor Park. But honestly, I think you could do really quite a lot with a 2,000 square feet terrace plot. So if you have the capacity, you have 1.5 to 2 years to do a rebuild, this would be a really, really nice place because we have that triangulation I talked about. So in terms of quality, even though the house itself might be a rebuild, the quality of the location I think is very, very strong. And this leads therefore to your exit strategy, because your exit strategy is that it is rare to have that triangulation of factors where we have be that center between school, amenities, park. Super good. Highly recommend. And then we have a couple more enclaves that I'd like to go through, just two. There is also that Siu Chow area. Now, Siu Chow is also 2-story envelope mixed that is just behind Thomson Plaza over here. And Siu Chow is really nice in terms of, this is a park and you're so near to the Thomson Plaza, but many of the homes over there, now let me just go over on the map, are actually split level design, and they are really, really high split levels. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so if you are looking at the Siu Chow stretch with this set of developments, so the nice thing is that quality wise, we're facing the park, which is so good. I would always love to dream of facing a park, to be honest with you. So in terms of park, this is so beautiful, but this particular stretch, all of these terraces, okay, have a very odd layout. The kitchen is in the front, the dining is in the front, living room is sunken downwards along this particular stretch. So, and then everything's a split level, and owners want at least $5 million for it. So if you can deal with the split levels, fine, go ahead. If not, I would suggest that you try to find something along the outer rims of the Siu Chow walk areas. Like these areas, this set will be really good because they're also park facing a little bit, somewhat. Okay, sorry, that's a substation. Nothing wrong with substations, by the way. You have the older set over here, but you look at these. These are almost as good as rebuilt plots. So unless, someone is willing to sell something over here, these guys have rebuilt it, right? Unless you can buy a rebuild. So for example, I'm just going to show you how much 75 Siu Chow walk would cost, or, how much was the estimate. So they bought this 2011. It's a 4,000 square feet plot. It's a corner terrace and it's a slightly trapezoid, so it's a bit deceiving because it looks narrow in the front. It's a corner terrace, but it actually widens out. at the back. So it's actually a pretty huge build. So something like that, 4,000 square feet. And we're talking about, recent sale transactions nearby, not that many. So 35 Siu Chow View is one of these houses. It's this one over here, because this is 33, which is the corner, so this is 35. And it is just a plain old terrace plot, 6-meter width, and it's only 2 stories. So what this is signaling is that actually people want to buy this location and are giving it prime kind of premium, because Siu Chow View, as we know, is part of the entire enclave that's walking distance to Thomson Plaza. It's just behind the park of Siu Chow Walk. So this is a really nice estate, and already for rather rebuildish looking plot, or maybe you can A&A this, I would say, if the ceiling is high enough. Looks like these guys have done quite a nice job. So if your neighbors have done something nice, you could probably just renovate this as well. So this already transacted $4.88 million. So something like 75, the PSF would likely be closer to 2008, 2009 PSF for the 4,000 plot. So 4025 times maybe 2009. Yeah, that was an $11.6 million corner terrace. So going back to our map, so let's focus back on the other potential enclaves at 1 km that I have not covered. So I did not cover yet the Gardenia, Orchid, Gladiola, and these are very nice prime areas as well in front of Thomson Plaza. In fact, I know someone who stays there, architect friend of mine. So I just want you to observe the plots over here. You can see that there's a mix of terraces and detached homes. And I think the reason why we'll not see so many upgraders from condos moving to these is because if you would have the money for a detached, you may not need to be buying 1 km to Ai Tong. So these are the kind of houses at Orchid, Gardenia, this area, Carnation Drive. And you can see that the plots are very large. So we're talking, huge plots that you would need quite a bit of money to get into. And that's why this is unlikely going to be one of your kind of immediate jumps. It could be that you buy a terrace at Gardenia. So Gardenia is probably going to be doable quantum-wise, but the question is about supply, because so you still have quite a lot of original condition ones, and then you have the nicer ones that have been done on Gardenia. But for you to be able to convince anyone to let go of such a good location, that's the thing. So going back to the next other set of enclaves that are going to be more popular with a lot more supply. So you need to be careful if you're going to be looking at the Thomson Ridge area, because there are parts of the Taman Permata that are not going to be within 1 kilometer. So Thomson Ridge is another very popular one. I would not recommend buying anything facing the main road, obviously at Upper Thomson. And then you have this entire area behind Jalan Todak. So we're talking about this whole space here, Jalan Isnin, Jalan Rabu, Jalan Minggu, this whole part, Jalan Kamis, and Jalan Terubuk. Like all of these, one thing to note about this area is that while they're very connected to like the cafes, the shops, the market, because you've got Shunfu Market over there, you might want to know that there is going to be this BTO HDB plot that's coming up here in front of the Marymount Road, and this is going to maybe be a little bit distressing because you're going to be facing construction and then HDB blocks behind you. So from an exit strategy, I would avoid this area. And this area also has a lot of very small roads. People are kind of fighting because of the commercial side. So everyone's trying to also park, get free parking to go to the cafes nearby. So I would avoid this area if I could. And I won't say too much about that because there are some quite nice units that have been done there, anywhere ranging from, mid-5s to almost $7 million for nicely renovated or A&A semi-Ds. Some are 2 stories, some are 2.5. But in terms of the envelope control, it's actually a 3-story envelope mixed landed. So you can actually buy a rebuilt plot. There are also a few available on the market. You can buy a rebuilt plot and try to do that. But I personally would avoid this particular enclave and focus on the other ones. So I want to summarize like how we're going to choose. Quality means, is it renovated? Are there nice views? Is it situated in a location that matches your lifestyle? Because I would avoid the 3-story envelope like a plague and behind Jalan Todak, but maybe if you really love that kind of crowded, happening feel and you're okay with small roads, that might be your jam. But I wouldn't recommend it from an exit strategy point of view because there are quite a lot of people who also don't like that. And if you associate Thomson, you will notice that Thomson is full of greenery on this side, the McRitchie and all that. So it's kind of this quandary between being close to amenities and also being close to nature. And if you ask me, choose the balanced view. So I would love Thomson Ridge if I could find Siu Chow, Gardenia, Windsor, Jupiter, Venus, like this side to me is really nice because we have access to the amenities like walking distance to Thomson Plaza. But you know that if you get too far down, like even at Gardenia, it would be a little bit of a distance to walk to Ai Tong School. So if you would ask me, the Venus and Windsor, this particular part, still walkable to Ai Tong School. Most walkable will be Fulton. Second in place will be Island Gardens, but Island Gardens is also kind of far because we're going up towards this way. And of course you can say, yes, we can walk to Bishan Park, but to be honest, the amenities nearest to this are all going to be in this area. So I am not so sure whether or not I would prioritize Island Gardens walk. So it's a little bit niche, but if you like the privacy and you don't intend to do a rebuild, you don't have the time, Island Gardens walking distance to Ai Tong is really another point of consideration for you guys. So I hope this was useful because I broke down all the micro districts within 1 km to Ai Tong. There are so many choices, and quality wise, I would say that the location, the views, the renovation, that's one thing to think about. And of course, the pricing, you have big ranges now. You have anything going for 2,000 per square foot for that kind of rebuilt land, all the way up to even 2006 for original 2-story terraces as well that are maybe still requiring some renovation but do not need to be fully rebuilt in that sense. And of course, if you have bigger plots, then the price goes up even more from a condo perspective. So we're talking about condo upgraders. We want to keep within $5 to $6 billion. I would either buy a rebuild and then be able to do time on that. And it will depend on your capacity to move twice, because you will have to move twice. But you know, pain in the short term means gain in the long term. So that could be something to consider. And then finally, your exit strategy. Of course, all of them have the number one exit strategy, which is 1 km to Ai Tong already. So you're already covered over there. And most of them in this area are walking distance to either Bright Hill MRT or Upper Thomson. So you have exit strategy number 2 over there, which is great. So how about number 3? The third thing to consider is, are there any deal breakers that will reduce my exit strategy compared to my competitors? And that could be the presence of, for example, HDB BTO right behind you. So that's Fulton, as well as that Jalan Rabu, Jalan Khamis, Jalan Isnin, this Jalan Chempa. So this area and the Fulton will have your HDB coming up behind it. And some people may not like that. So these are minus points for me for these 2 particular districts compared to the rest. And of course, if you want a plus point, is to be closer to amenities. And that's why I think that the Siu Chow area will continue to command that premium. And the second kind of premium that you can expect really is like if you're facing a park. So park facing units for exit strategy, you know you can command a premium as well. So if you are one of these surrounding ones on Siu Chow Walk or Siu Chow Way, if you can deal with the Siu Chow Way, oh my gosh, the split levels, but you want the park facing may negate that split level problem for you at the end of the day. So if you want a detailed consult, because this has been a very detailed video, but it's not detailed enough to your lifestyle, I would love to have a chat with you. I would love to just sit down with you and have an honest chat about what you can do with your portfolio. And I hope to help you make the decisions for your family so that we can all prosper in the next season. I'm Sarah X Miracle, and my next one will be about 1 km to Henry Park. So stay tuned for that. We'll also be doing Nanyang and Rosyth coming up. So stay tuned for the series. Please subscribe, give us a notification, especially if you like content like that. It would mean so much to me if you gave me a like button. I also have a Google review page, so you can also click the link below to give me a review if you like my work. I'm also on other platforms such as Instagram and TikTok. But in the meantime, stay safe and see you at the next video.